Imagine this: you are standing in a huge stadium. Thousands of people around you rise to their feet. The sound of a national anthem begins to play, powerful, emotional, filled with the deep notes of drums and brass instruments. All eyes turn toward the waving flag in the center. Everyone is standing except you. You feel the pressure of those stares. You hear the whispers. You feel the weight of judgment. Why isn't he standing? Doesn't he respect his country? Doesn't she love her homeland? In that moment, your heart is racing, not because you hate your country, but because you love something even more, the truth of Allah's religion. You know that every choice a believer makes must be filtered through the Qur'an, the Sunnah, and the principles of our faith. But you also know this choice won't make you popular, my dear brothers and sisters. This is not just a hypothetical scene. This is a question many Muslims face today. Is it haram to stand for the national anthem? On today's episode of Islamic Echoes, we are going to go deep, not just to give you a simple yes or no answer, but to explore why Islam teaches what it teaches. We will uncover the principles behind the ruling, the evidence from Qur'an and Sunnah, the wisdom of the scholars, and how to navigate these moments in real life. So, stay with me until the end, because this is about much more than a song or a flag. This is about who you glorify, who you imitate, and where your ultimate loyalty lies. The first mistake: expecting a verse or hadith for everything. Many people ask questions like this with the expectation that there must be a direct hadith. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Do not stand for the national anthem." But this way of thinking misunderstands how Islamic law works. Islam is a complete way of life. The Quran gives us principles. The Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad explains those principles in action. And the scholars, using their deep understanding, apply those principles to new situations that didn't exist in the Prophet's time. We cannot expect a verse or hadith for every modern invention, whether that's social media, genetic engineering, or national anthems. Instead, we look at the nature of the thing in question. We compare it to what does exist in the Quran and Sunnah, and we see which principles apply. Step 1. What is a national anthem? At its core, a national anthem is a musical composition, usually played with instruments like drums, brass, and strings, created to inspire pride and unity for a nation. In almost every country, it is accompanied by symbolic acts like standing, saluting, or placing the hand over the heart. Before we talk about standing, let's address the first component, music. Here, the Islamic ruling is clear. The overwhelming consensus of scholars from all four madhabs, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali, is that musical instruments are haram, with the exception of the simple daf, used in certain permissible occasions. The Prophet said in an authentic hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, "There will be among my ummah those who will regard as permissible fornication, silk, alcohol, and musical instruments." This hadith is explicit. Just as fornication and alcohol remain forbidden until the end of time, so too does the use of musical instruments for entertainment. Therefore, if a national anthem is played with musical instruments, which it almost always is, then listening to it intentionally is prohibited. And if standing for it means you are participating in the act of listening, then the problem begins right there. Step 2. What does standing symbolize? Now, some will say, okay, fine, maybe the music is haram, but what about the act of standing itself? Isn't that harmless? Here's where we must understand the deeper principle in Islam. Standing is not just a neutral physical action. It can be a form of glorification. During the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad, there was an incident where he led the prayer while sitting due to illness. The companions behind him were standing. He instructed them to sit as well after the prayer. He said, "You are about to do what the Jews and Christians do. They stand for their leaders." This was a warning. It showed that certain postures, standing, bowing, saluting, can cross into the territory of imitation and glorification that belongs only to Allah. Glorification belongs to Allah alone. We stand in salah, not for a king, not for a president, not for a flag, but for Allah, the Lord of all creation. Standing before Him in prayer is an act of worship. That posture is special. It is sacred. When we begin to use the same posture in a way that imitates the religious or ceremonial practices of others, especially non-Muslims, we risk crossing the line into imitation. The Prophet Muhammad said, "Whoever imitates a people is one of them." This is a serious warning. It doesn't mean wearing a watch or driving a car is haram. Those are universal technologies, not religious or cultural symbols. but it does mean that when it comes to customs, rituals, or forms of honor that are rooted in non-Islamic traditions, we must be careful not to adopt them. Step 3. The flag and its meaning. Some might argue, but the flag is just a piece of cloth. Why make an issue out of it? It's true, physically, it is just fabric, but symbols carry meaning. For many people, the flag represents the nation, and standing before it while music plays is a show of reverence. The question we must ask is, does this reverence conflict with our primary loyalty to Allah and His Messenger? Are we borrowing rituals from systems outside of Islam to express that loyalty? And is there a danger of elevating these symbols to a status of exaggerated honor? Islam does not forbid loving your homeland. The Prophet Muhammad loved Makkah deeply. When he had to leave it during the Hijrah, he said, "By Allah, you are the best of the lands of Allah, and the most beloved of lands to Allah. Had I not been expelled from you, I would not have left you." So patriotism in itself is not haram, but the way we express that love matters. Respect for one's country is shown by serving it with justice, honesty, and hard work, not by imitating ceremonial acts rooted in other traditions, especially when they involve haram elements like music, standing for an anthem, saluting a flag, moments of silence. These are not from Islamic tradition. They were imported into Muslim lands during times of colonialism, when foreign powers imposed their systems and symbols. Over time, they became normalized, and many Muslims forgot where they came from. But as believers, we must always ask, is this from our deen? Is this from the Sunnah, or is this an imitation of others' religious or ceremonial practices? Applying the principle, so, when we combine the rulings, music with instruments is haram-stemming, as a form of ceremonial reverence for a symbol outside. Islamic worship can fall into forbidden imitation customs imported from non-Muslim traditions. In matters of symbolism and ritual are not permissible. The conclusion is clear. Participating in the national anthem, by standing, saluting, or otherwise engaging in the ceremony, is not part of Islam, and avoiding it is the safer and more correct path. Of course, life is not always simple. You may be in a school, workplace, or public event where everyone stands for the anthem. Refusing to stand can bring social pressure, misunderstanding, or even legal consequences in some countries. This is where wisdom, hikmah, is needed. If avoiding the ceremony will not harm you significantly, then do so respectfully. If you are forced into the situation, keep your intention clear in your heart. Avoid participation as much as possible, and remember that Allah knows what is in your chest. At the heart of this issue is a simple but profound truth. Our ultimate honor, our ultimate reverence, belongs to Allah alone. The forms of respect and glorification we use in our deen are not to be repurposed for anything else, not for leaders, not for symbols, and not for songs. As Muslims, we respect our countries by serving them, improving them, and standing for justice within them. But we do not need to adopt non-Islamic rituals to prove that respect. If today's discussion gave you a clearer understanding, then my brothers and sisters, don't let it end here. Share this message with a friend, a classmate, or a family member who has wondered about this issue. Start a conversation about what true respect and loyalty mean in Islam. Here at Islamic Echoes, our mission is to bring clarity to the questions that matter, the questions that shape how we live as Muslims in a modern world filled with imported customs and hidden pressures. So, subscribe now, turn on your notifications, and join this growing circle of believers who put Allah first in every choice they make, because the next time the anthem plays and the flag waves, you'll know exactly where you stand and who you stand for.